The most important NLP model is probably the most overlooked NLP model. In this video, I'm going to show you why the NLP Meta Model is so important and how you can use it. Keep watching. This is Life Mastery Gym. I'm Damon, and I teach people just like you cutting-edge NLP techniques and processes so that you can master your life and take charge of your destiny. So if that sounds good, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. When you truly understand the Meta Model, you will unlock the foundation of NLP and you will use NLP so much more effectively. I've studied the Meta Model for years and it finally clicked. And when it did, it changed everything. And that's what I'm going to share with you in this video. The Meta Model put the L, or the linguistic, in Neuro-Linguistic Programming. It's what put the L in NLP. Now, before we go deeper into this, I'm curious about you. Do you know, or did you know, that the Meta Model was the first NLP model? Let me know yes or no in the comments down below. In this video, I'm not going to go into each language pattern of the Meta Model. At the end of this video, I will show you where you can get a free PDF on the several language patterns in the Meta Model. But for this discussion, I'm going to explain what most people don't go into when they teach the Meta Model, and that's the three concepts that the Meta Model is based on, and that is deletion, distortion, and generalization. And it also happens to be that those three concepts, deletion, distortion, and generalization, are the foundations of all NLP. For something to be a NLP technique or an NLP process, it means that it is based on one or two or all three of those concepts of deletion, distortion, generalization. In general, all NLP models will have all three of those. So what's important about these concepts and what do these concepts actually mean? So a deletion is when we think about all of the information that is coming at us every single moment. There is tons of information that we're taking in from our five senses. But notice that we're only aware of actually a very small part, and we can call this consciousness. So consciously, we have to delete a lot of information so that we can focus on the information that we find that is necessary, the information that we feel has some bearing on our existence, or maybe the things that we want to do in the moment, or whatever is important to us. Everything else gets deleted. Now, we're still absorbing this information, and that's why we have an unconscious. This information still comes in and is processed somehow. But consciously, we're deleting a lot of this information out. And this is absolutely necessary. We have to do this to be able to make any sort of decision. Because if we didn't, we would be dealing with so much information all of the time, it would be almost impossible to make a decision about anything. So we're able to delete information. Now, as I go through these concepts, what I want you to also remember too is that these are not bad things. They're not bad or good. They're neutral. A deletion is absolutely necessary. So I don't want you to be thinking about these concepts as something you should or should not do. We do them. We're going to do them anyway. And what's important is that, yes, they cause problems when we delete the wrong information, or they can solve problems whenever we bring information that was deleted back into consciousness. And you're going to find this through all three of the concepts of deletion, distortion, and generalization, that we do this no matter what, so there's no point in resisting doing it. But it can solve problems and it can create problems. So I'll go deeper into this as we go forward. Distortion, when we think of a distortion, this is when we're sort of making things up, when we can imagine something that has not happened. We can imagine the future even though it has not happened. And not only that, we can imagine things that don't even exist. We can imagine things like unicorns and purple elephants and all these fantastical things. And this is where we get fiction from. So we're not bound by all logic and everything, and by what everything is like absolutely real and tangible. We can imagine outside of that, and this is what we would call a distortion. Now, a generalization is when we take old information and relate it to new information. So if I'm learning something that's new, I can relate it to something that I already know, which makes it a lot easier to understand. So an analogy might be a way of describing a generalization. And another way of giving you an example of a generalization is when I'm a child and I touch a hot stove. Well, next time I see a stove, I can generalize that information over to the stove that's in my presence now, even though it's not the same one, and say, okay, I've touched one of these before and it was hot, so this one might be hot as well. So this is me generalizing that information over to a new experience or to a new stove. You can go much, much deeper with this when you start thinking about what is our reality. You will not ever experience reality directly because of these three concepts of deletion, generalization, and distortion. So we have so much information that's coming at us at one time, and we can call that objective reality. But it's also passing through our five senses. It's also being interpreted. It's being deleted, generalized, and distorted. Okay? These are very, very necessary processes, like I said, because we cannot absorb all of the information that's coming at us at once and consciously use it and make decisions and do things that we have to do. What happens as a result of that is we operate from what we call a map of reality. We don't operate from reality itself. We operate from our map of reality. And if you think about it like this too, it's when you're navigating, when you're finding a location you have not been to before, you're using a map or you're using a GPS. When you're in it and you're like trying to find it, you don't have that bird's eye view. And that's why a map is so helpful, because it gives you that bird's eye view, and then you can sort of help yourself navigate it. And that's why we say in NLP that the map is not the territory is not the map. So we create a map of reality. It's a pocket size, if you will, shortened version that is easier to use, and it helps us navigate the world around us. Okay? And that map is built on the concepts of deleting, generalizing, and distorting. If you think about an actual map versus the territory, well, that map is has to delete some information out. You can't put everything in it. If you did, then the map itself would become the territory. And then with distortion, well, a map isn't really real, and they draw cartoon trees on it or cartoon roads on it, whatever it is that sort of shows you how the map relates to reality. And then generalization, you're basically generalizing that information over to the map. So a map is a good analogy for what we use to navigate reality, and how that map is created, how it's transformed from reality to the map, are those three concepts of deletion, generalization, and distortion. The meta model is amazing because what the meta model is, it's the language version of that. What the founders of NLP discovered was that you can notice either your own limitations of your own map of reality through your language patterns, or you can notice it in other people if you're a coach or you're a therapist or even a salesperson. What the meta model did was it identified 14 patterns that let you know when that person has bumped up against one of those limitations. So for example, a modal operator is one of the language patterns in the meta model. It's one of the most important ones because it clearly lets you know when you're either bumping up against one of your limitations in your map or someone else is whenever you hear their language. So they might say things like, I have to, I need to, I should. All of these words, need, have to, should, these are all words that let you know that this is a modal operator. And so what do you do with that? Well, so first of all, what that lets you know is that this is a limitation. It doesn't mean that reality is limited. It means that your map is limited. So what you need to do is you need to see beyond the limitation. You need to access information beyond the limitation. So you can counter that language pattern. If somebody says, well, I really need to go and do this, you could say, well, what would it be like if you didn't? So it gets the person to consider options and choices outside of that limitation, which forces a person to go in and find this information. In order for that person to understand what it is, to understand the question and answer it, they have to dive into this deeper information that they had deleted out, and they have to go in and get it. Another language pattern is a universal quantifier. And this you'll hear whenever it's basically calling your attention to absolutes, when either you're thinking in absolutes or someone else is speaking in absolutes, and they say, all men are this way, or all women are that way, or this always happens to me. Well, of course that's not true. It can never be true. But if you're caught in that limitation, you're thinking that way, then you would want to counter it by thinking to yourself, or challenging it by saying, is it absolutely always that way? And then you start finding the counterexamples to it. So again, this enriches your map of your reality. Instead of being stuck in limitation, by noticing it showing up in your language, you counter it, and then by countering it, you enrich the map with more resources and more choices. So to summarize, the Meta Model is a set of language patterns that expresses distortion, generalization, and deletion, especially when it limits you. So when you learn these patterns, then you'll learn whenever you're stuck in limitation and how that's happening. And language is the code for how we think. You could say things like, well, I just said that, I don't really mean it, or I just said that, I don't think it. You might want to back that up and take a look, because your language is often the signal, is what is telling you how you're thinking about something, or how someone else is thinking about something. So by learning these language patterns, you can expose these limitations and then find ways to challenge them in order to enrich your map of reality. And like I said, deletion, generalization, and distortion is found in every true NLP model or true NLP technique. That is the foundation of NLP. So when you really learn this model, which was the first model ever created, it was created before NLP even had a name. When you really go deep with this model and learn how to use it, this will set you up to make anything you learn in NLP so much more effective, because you're learning these concepts of deletion, generalization, and distortion. When you really understand those concepts and you go really deep with those, then NLP becomes so much easier to understand and use effectively. So now you know the foundation of the Meta Model, and not just the foundation of the Meta Model, but the foundation of NLP itself. But what you don't know are the Meta Model language patterns, which is why I've created a free PDF that you can have. You just go down to the link in the description below, click on that link, or we're also put in the link in the comment, the pinned comment right there. Just click on that link and you can get access to the free PDF of the language patterns, and you can start learning them right away, immediately. So what are you going to do now? Are you going to learn the Meta Model? Like I said, it's one of the most overlooked models because it doesn't look sexy or fancy in the beginning. It's just words. And so most NLP students will completely overlook it and jump to whatever other model looks exciting. And that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make in your NLP training. I suggest everybody learn the NLP Meta Model first. So are you going to do it? Let me know in the comments below by typing yes or no, or letting me know what your plan is for learning NLP. And while you're down there, you may want to get a copy of that free PDF. In fact, I don't want to say you may, you absolutely should, modal operator, should get a copy of that PDF. If you like this video, make sure you click like, and if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. And if you know of someone who you think would enjoy this video, make sure you share it with them. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.